Hello, I am ZHAO Chuang. Let's draw the skull of an adult Corythosaurus this time. When drawing, we should pay attention to its overall proportion. Make sure to make it correct when composing the picture. Its eyes were located almost at the center of the height. As it had a very tall crest, its eyes were at the middlemost position. In addition, it had a slender mouth, and the underside of its lower jaw was curved. All these features should be presented in the drawing. When drawing the skull of an adult Corythosaurus, we should further know its subtle structures. For instance, although the crest atop its head seemed to be a simple circle, it had a complex structure, which was not a true circle, but an axe-like shape with a gap between its posterior and the skull. Its crest was not an integrity but spliced by several bones, including part from its nasal bone and part from the face. Now, let's get started. We compose the draft. Pinpoint the mouth first. Going upward, here is its nose. Then, further upward will be its crest. Pay attention to the proportion. Its crest was very large. The rear of its skull will end here. The lower jaw curves down like this. Its entire face and crest will account for each half of the height. Then, we dive into the details. First, trace the shape of the nose, followed by the crest, making these lines more concrete and apparent. The rear of its crest was not directly connected to the skull. Its crest was an axe-like shape, with only the front half linked. The surface of the crest comprised several bones, so there were seams like this in the middle. This seam extends downward and finally expands to form the nostrils. The bones that make up its mouth extend forward into the shape of a duck's bill. Although this part is shaped like a duck's bill on the skull, it would have more keratinous structures when alive. We can use shading to make its nostrils darker. The closer to the root of the nostrils, the darker we can draw so that there will be a feeling of extension. Then, show its eye sockets. The bone inserted into the crest is called the lacrimal bone. The eyes are located behind the lacrimal bones. Several bones are behind the eyes, such as the postorbital and occipital bones. Moving downward are some other bones, like the quadrate bone, forming the lateral temporal fenestra behind its eyes. The lateral temporal fenestra is a typical structure in dinosaurs, and most dinosaurs have this structure. Then, let's draw its maxilla downward. And, below its eyes are its jugal bones. This upper bone extends down, and here is the articulation. Let's finish its maxilla. The maxilla has teeth, which are very small when viewed from the side. The maxilla extends posteriorly and ends here. Next, we draw its mandible. Another bone inserts into the jugal bone like this. The mandible extends backward and forms a hook shape, constituting the mandible's articulation. The mandible teeth correspond to the maxillary teeth. Then, moving forward, this location is the beak at the anterior of the lower jaw. We can draw a concave line here to show that the teeth are depressed inward. Complete the contour of the lower jaw. Now, let's add some details. Show all the gaps between the bones. Draw a sclerotic ring inside the eye, a loop of bones fixed on the outside of the eye. The opening in the middle was the size of the eye when it was alive. Then, we can use a thicker and darker pen to fill in the hollow parts of the skull, such as the temporal fenestra and eye socket, showing how these parts should have soft tissues when alive. The large opening between the upper and lower jaws can also be filled darker. The same goes for the anterior of its mouth. Then, we draw the skin wrapping outside. Its skin was very thin, especially the keratinous part atop the head, a relatively thin layer. However, a part will grow upward at the high top of the keratin, so we can draw this part thicker. In addition, the keratinous part of the nose was relatively thin, like that of a turtle shell. At the anterior of its mouth, a bird beak-like keratinous structure extends downward. Then, we move to its lower jaw and present the thickness of the skin here. Then, make it thicker when coming to the throat. The neck part can't be fully and solidly colored. Slowly make the strokes lighter and transition to the outside of the paper. In this way, we finish drawing the skull of an adult Corythosaurus.